Welcome to Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the podcast that gives you an unfiltered, behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like being a woman in the middle who's over 50 and following her entrepreneurial dreams. Grab a superhero cape, girlfriend, because you deserve one. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach and Midlife Mentor, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am excited to inspire you with interviews that feature all of this midlife amazingness. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the show. We have another really exciting interview ahead of us about somebody who's had several rounds of burnout, a lot of therapy and healing, and has learned how to make her business fit into her life instead of squeezing her life into her business. Today, you're going to be meeting Jen Liddy, a woman in the middle entrepreneur who's a brand, message, and content strategist who uses her word nerdiness for good to help midlife experts, service providers, and coaches be able to share their own brilliance. Welcome to the show, Jen. Thanks so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here. I'm really excited to talk about this because I think that midlife women have a lot of stuff on their shoulders, and I would just love to help unpack some of it.
That's a great way to put it. So I know we're going to have a great conversation about your midlife entrepreneur story. We're also going to be talking about your business and what's going really well, and also what midlife issues might be getting into your way to some extent and might be challenging for you in your life as well as being a business owner. So let's get started with big, juicy questions. How old are you? How long have you been an entrepreneur? And what is it that you do in the world? Add your entrepreneurial journey because that's really juicy too. So take it away.
You got it. I'm 54. I am a former high school teacher and college professor. I taught English. I always say it feels like I taught for 150 years. But I really taught for like 14 years. And then I thought, when I go into secondary ed, like higher ed, oh my God, this is going to be so much better because I don't have to deal with parents. And it wasn't. Like short story, it wasn't. And I loved teaching, and I was actually a really good teacher. I loved everything about it except the grading and the parents. And like that list just kept getting longer and longer and longer. And then I realized, God, it was like I had left teaching high school and I had started teaching at a community college. And I was really perfect for community college because those students really needed the kind of teaching skills I had, and I could really meet them where they were. And they were just like hungry to learn. And I did that for probably 3 or 4 years. Again, I got to the point where I would be in the shower every morning and I would be like, should I just call in today? Should I cancel class today? Should I go back next semester? And the more those things were happening, the more I was like, something isn't working. Something isn't right.
Right.
And so when you are a teacher, you get the message a lot of times that you're just a teacher. Like that's all you can do, that you're just a teacher. And you're treated, by the students and by the parents and by the administration sometimes as not like able to really do anything else. You're just in the classroom and you're just a teacher. And so the idea of owning a business and doing marketing, like none of that would have ever occurred to me.
Really?
No, really. Yes.
Huh.
Because so I grew up I was the first person in my family to go to college. And my mother didn't work outside of the home and my dad was like a mechanic. And so there was just this like sense of in our family, this old family story of like, life is hard. We're German. Things are hard. This is the way it is. You work hard and that's how you bring value to the family. And that's like, that's how you succeed is working hard. So it was just always like, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a job, and then you're going to stay in that job until you die. So the idea of leaving education after not only having like a bachelor's degree, but then 2 master's degrees, right? Like, you're like, where am I going? And do I have any choices? So we're talking probably like 2012, 2013 at this point. I had a son and I only have one child. So he's about 5 at this point. And I'm just like, I don't love teaching anymore. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but I don't love teaching anymore. And I felt like every time I got into the classroom, I was always bumping up against like, okay, smartphones had come into the classroom and everything. It was like, I just felt like constantly policing my students. And I just felt like I just couldn't this is what it was. I couldn't get them to care about communicating their brilliance, their ideas, their thoughts. They just didn't care enough. Like I was the English teacher who was making them write these papers that they hated writing and these books that they hated reading. And I was trying to teach them how to think critically, but they're at a place like they just didn't care. And I will always remember December 2013. I was on like the last gasp of air. We were just about to take do the final paper. And we're still talking about freaking thesis statements, which is like the foundational thing. And I had just kind of had it. And I said, you guys, I cannot care about your education more than you care about your education. I can't care about you getting your ideas into the world more than you do. Like, I can't do it for you. And I said, I've been up here tap dancing for you for 14 weeks at this point, and you're still not getting it. And I don't know how to help you. And that was it for me. That was like the last semester I taught in a classroom.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is powerful. I'm having all kinds of flashbacks as you're telling that story. And what really stood out to me, I was like, I was a really good student. I totally cared about my education, and I really cared about English. And we had to diagram sentences for so long when I was a kid. Anyway, I remember the first teacher, or maybe it was in the curriculum, I don't know why, but I remember when I was first introduced to the concept of critical thinking academically. And I started to be really challenged by it, and then feeling very inspired by it. And then I remember when it came to my master's thesis, and I'm like, oh, this is the critical thinking part, the discussion. It always stuck with me. It really, really did. But that idea that you just, like you said, your last gasp, that you were just so authentic and frustrated with your students.
They were silent. They were like, I mean, we had developed a relationship over 14 weeks, right? And I had a reputation as somebody that was approachable and a good teacher. So like they knew who they were getting in with when they chose my class. And so they were really shocked that I had just been so transparent about like, you guys aren't pulling your weight and I can't do it for you. And it was the phrasing, the particular phrasing that really got them was, I can't care about your education more than you do. I can't care more about your thinking than you do. And for them, a lot of them were just like, whoa, nobody has ever spoken that to me before. And it wasn't all bad. I mean, there were moments where I would have students who were like, oh my God, Mrs. Liddy, you taught me how to think and now nobody can take that away from me. And you've taught me how to like ask questions and nobody can take that away from me. So there was all of this wonderful, wonderful stuff. So it was really hard to step away from teaching. Talk about sunk costs, right? Like all of those degrees, all of those years, all of those trainings. So I was really questioning whether I should, but there were just too many days where I was in the shower going, I really don't want to go today. Or I'd come home with a pile of papers and I'm like, I really don't want to look at those papers, just because I knew that no matter what I was doing to teach them, they just weren't applying any of it. And I was just crappy paper after crappy paper. And so December 2013 was my last time in the classroom. And then I moved into entrepreneurship.
Wow. And so when you moved into entrepreneurship, what was that decision making like for you? When did you decide, okay, it's not just that I'm leaving the classroom, but I'm going to do this?
There was a little bit of overlap. So starting in October 2013, I had been working out with a woman who was an exceptional personal trainer, and she was like she was growing her business. And one of the things that she really struggled with was the behind the scenes stuff, the communication stuff. So communications and operations, which are totally my jam because that's how my brain works. Her brain, most people's brains that I work with actually think in swirls and magic. And my brain thinks in steps and ladders. And so together, it's like, two great tastes that taste great together.
Yeah.
And so she was growing her business and I was like, oh, I'll work on the back end of your business. Well, very quickly, it became a partnership and we wound up opening a brick and mortar fitness studio. But one of the things I really like to make clear about this journey was it's really hard to go from being a teacher to an entrepreneur if everybody in your life is in your ear going, what about the retirement system? What about your years? What about your master's degree? What about the kids who need you? How can you abandon us? What are you going to do? Like, what about a paycheck? And I had and still have a husband who is entrepreneurial, and I have a mother-in-law who is entrepreneurial. My entire family still doesn't know what the hell I do, and they don't really get it. And that's totally fine. Believe me, again, a lot of therapy around that. But in my immediate circle, I had people who got and respected and trusted entrepreneurship. So I had people kind of, fanning my flames rather than buzzing in my ear about like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? My colleagues thought I was crazy. They thought I was like really making a bad choice.
For sure. Because one thing that the young teachers start to hear really early is get that pension going.
Exactly.
Get that pension going. I've got a kid who just graduated in teaching, and I've heard the conversation, and it's just fascinating. I've also heard this conversation in other fields. And now, over the last few years, I started to see my teaching friends all retiring on Facebook.
Mhm.
So there's something to it, depending on how
Yeah.
you're thinking about possibility and options. And it's a thing
Yeah.
for people who want to focus on that thing.
It's like the golden ring, like you're just like keeping your eye on that prize. And I remember, I will never forget my friend Gail, who had been a teacher at that point for like 30 years. And she's like, how can you leave? Like, what, like, how can you like take it? And I said, I can't keep doing this thing for the next 35 years in the hopes that I'm going to make $42,000 in like my retirement. Like, I would rather do something. I've got to do something else. Cause like, this was it was just too hard. It was just too much. And I mean, I have so much love and respect for teachers because their work is so hard. And so this is not about bashing teachers. It was about, it just didn't fit me anymore because, and I talk about it now, I'm like, I would have to be in my classroom at 7:27 a.m., ready to go, cheery. All right, let's go. Let's do some English. Right. So, I mean, I just think about it now. I haven't been back in the classroom since 2013. So it's been a long time. And I've acclimated to this entrepreneurial life. But that switch from teaching to entrepreneurship, so like the first round of burnout was teaching, right? And then there's nothing that'll get you burned out like starting a brick and mortar business when you have no idea what you're doing, which was me in 2013 and 14.
I always fantasized about having, like, since I was a little kid, I loved to do calligraphy. And I always fantasized about having a paper store, fancy papers and pens and inks. And this was way before scrapbooking was like the thing that it is now or anything like that. But then, as I got older and as I realized I did have an entrepreneurial mindset, I'm like, oh my gosh, if you have a bricks and mortar, you have to be there or somebody has to be there all the time or not quite, but
Oh, yeah.
And so totally know what you're saying. But it's not just the teachers too. I think it's any career that has a very distinct career path.
Yes. Nurses.
Versus the swirly entrepreneurial mindset with a gazillion ideas and just so many ideas on how to help people, how to make money, how to do things, how to serve at a high level, like blah, 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 all the things. It's very different, but when it's very clear that this is what you do and what you do includes retirement at a certain age and in this way. And it's, there are lots of careers that have a career path like that. And once you get more comfortable with the entrepreneurial mindset, you see that thinking this way is very different than thinking that way. And not everybody can do it or wants it at all.
To. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So then what happened between the bricks and mortar and being a brand message and content?
Oh, a lot. Basically, you open up a 9,000 square foot fitness studio, you have to learn all of the things about operations, having employees, all the things I never had to do as a teacher, marketing. And so I will fast forward through that, which was like 2013 to about 2016, 2017 that was operated. And it was like getting a PhD in business and a PhD in myself. And it was an extremely powerful and important part of the entrepreneurial journey for me. But when you have business partners and you have investors and you have a brick and mortar and you're like, who's gonna put the next roll of toilet paper in the bathroom? Like it's all on you. I was working 60 to 70 hours a week and we were making enough to cover our costs, but not to pay ourselves. So it was like you're working and you're working and you're working and you're not seeing any of the financial benefit. I mean, I learned a lot. And again, I had a very supportive family. So that was probably the only reason that I'm not divorced is my husband really understood what foundership is like and what ownership is like. But the number one thing that I really kind of came out on the other side was there are things that you need to know going in. And just a lot of people, they're like, I have an idea. And your idea is just not enough. And I learned it, like in the dumpster fire of the 3 and 4 years that I was in there. But I got out and immediately wanted to teach other emerging entrepreneurs how to do it. So I kind of had this, I would say from 2016 to where I am now. I had like there were like iterations of my business. So I was an accountability coach. I was a business development coach. And then I just really was like, my favorite things to do are when I'm talking to a business development client is pulling her brilliance out of her head. And so I really leaned into content and marketing. And, along the way of doing the work, I'm also doing I'm taking courses and I'm working with coaches and I'm in programs. So I'm learning and learning and learning. And the other thing is the landscape has changed so immensely since 2013 when I got in, and then 2016 when I went online to run my business online. And from now where we are now, like everything is just iterated so much. So it's just like a constant tweaking. And then I realized I personally don't enjoy social media. I don't want to tell you what to put on Instagram. I don't want to perform on TikTok. Like there's all of these things that happened in like 2022. And I was like, I don't really want to be working at this content. So I was a content creation specialist, which is so broad. And yes, it's content creation. And you're like, oh, you're in a lane of content creation, but it's still a very broad lane. And so at the beginning of 2024, I was like, what do I really want to help people with? Like, I don't want to help people. Like, I don't want to help people know what to say on Instagram because Instagram changes every 3.5 seconds, right? Like, I want to do something where I help people know how to say what they're an expert in so that their audience gets it. And also so that they sound like themselves. Because one of the things I was noticing, because we've all been online for so long, everybody starts to sound super generic. Or we co-opt maybe how our mentor sounds, or we bring in, when I was in industry and I was doing my expertise there, this is how I had to sound. And I sound like a robot, but that doesn't seem to be working on LinkedIn for me. And so I was like, the things that can be more foundational, it's not sexy what I do. Like I really need to, it's not sexy, but it's basically like, let's get your messaging dialed in and nailed down so that no matter when you see that friend you haven't seen in 10 years in the grocery store, they're like, oh my God, what are you doing now? And you can say it. That's power for people to get people's attention without having to dance and lip sync and do all this garbage that performing. Not everybody likes to perform. Like the experts I work with, they don't want to perform. They just want to do good work in the world. So that's how I kind of iterated from 2016 going to accountability coach, business coach, content creation. And now really brand voice and messaging are the two, that's it. That's what I offer. If we get to the point where we're working together and you're like, I love everything we've done. How do I put it into the world? I can make you a content strategy, but not until we get your voice and your messaging down. So that's how I kind of got there. And it was just a lot of, I don't want to say pivoting. It was a lot of iterating and sharpening and noticing God, this doesn't work for me anymore. Oh, I don't really like this anymore, which is kind of how I operate. It's being in the shower again. Do I want to go in today? It's just noticing where it's a suit that doesn't fit anymore.
Yeah. It's connecting with your thoughts.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. And also I have a great time connecting with my thoughts in the shower too.
Oh yeah.
I think nobody's bugging you in there, and the
you can't have AirPods in, you can't be listening to anything.
You're not multitasking. It's where's the soap? I'm washing my hair. That's there's not much going on.
That's it.
And you can really focus, and
it's true.
It's so good. In my last job, I was in a book publishing department in a hospital, and I used to always come up with the titles for the books in the shower.
Oh,
I could guarantee
so much sense.
I could sit at my desk and just go, I don't know what to do. It's way before.
Let me go take a shower.
I'll get back to you. Yeah.
Or the car is another place that really good ideas come.
Yeah, you're right. But then you can't write them down.
You can't write them down. But you know where the other place I love to get a good idea is right in that moment when you're on the massage table and you're about to pass out into sweet oblivion. Everything happens for me there. And I forget it all the time. Downloads of brilliance, but then it's gone. So the shower is better.
100%. In the shower, at least you're en route to your desk.
Yeah.
At least you kind of end up there. But in the car, you could be anywhere.
I know.
It's so funny. But yeah, what you were doing is connecting with your actual thoughts and then your feelings. And so I struggled with making a decision about change. I was stuck in a spin for a good 5 years. And what I'm noticing with you, that you had several iterations,
Mm-hmm.
which are, morphing changes and
Mm-hmm.
nothing too drastic. But eventually you got clear and then you had enough courage to do it. You weren't frozen by fear.
Yeah. And it's, I would like to speak to that because it does seem like it's seamless, but it is maddening those times where you're just like, I know something needs to change. I don't know what it is. I don't know where I'm going. But the conversation I've learned to have with myself is in those really gray, foggy, and they're not even moments, they're like months. And like you said, sometimes years.
Mm.
And the longest one was like 18 months for me. Um, I always have to remind myself that on the other side, I get that I'm 50 freaking 4 years old. I have always gotten to the other side, even if it took 5 years, right? Like even if it took 18 months, I trust that I get there. And one of the things that I struggle with is, oh, maybe I'm just so inert now. Maybe I've burned out again and I've gone up in flames and I know I need to change something. Maybe I'm never going to get up off the couch again. Maybe this burnout is like for the rest of my life. And I always go into a burnout lull, doubting that I will ever come out of it. And I have always come out of it. And I have just learned to trust the process, basically.
Yeah, that is it. And one thing I teach my clients, we talk about it a lot, is that we struggle with this idea that there is such a thing as certainty, but really there isn't. And all we have is the next best step. So if you can just get to the next best step, then that will help you figure out the next best step.
Yeah.
And you just have to trust, like it's not like when we were 26, 28, whatever, like when you decided to be a teacher, that felt like, oh, good, I'm going to be doing this for a while.
The rest of my life. Oh,
Yeah.
good. Thank God. Now I know. I
And it helps
literally
you.
thought that.
Yeah, it helps you move forward. And then you can always change. It was the next best step at that time. But then it wasn't the next best step anymore to come in for the next semester or what I get you, or
Right.
semester or mid-year. Yeah, so I find that quite a relief because now, as older and wiser women, we know it doesn't have to be, if we remember, it doesn't need to be a decision like that. And we don't have another 30 years of working at this point, right? So anyway, good for you. Now, the other thing that I love talking about, because that is the whole purpose behind this podcast, is what midlife challenges that you face as you're running your business. So what's going on for you in midlife that has gotten in the way? It doesn't mean that it completely stalled you out, but it created a hiccup or it made you have to do something a little different other than plan A.
Two big things come to mind. We can dive into whatever one you want or both. One was the hormonal thing that I had no idea. I was in premenopause at 43. So like for 10 years, I didn't have a full night of sleep kind of thing. I didn't know that bioidentical hormones were a thing. I didn't know that perimenopause was a thing. People weren't talking about it 10 years ago the way they're talking about it now.
Absolutely right.
So the first thing was like, oh my God, like sluggish and brain, like all of the stuff that goes along with that. I'm sure your listeners don't need me to enumerate it. The second huge thing in midlife was looking around, sometimes at women who are younger than me and have done, quote unquote, done more than me, are further along than me. And along those lines, when you compare yourself and you're like, oh, I love her business model. She's like rocking it. I want to do what she's doing. And then you try to do it and you're like, the life is sucked out of you because it's not a business model that literally works for your lifestyle, your energy, your personality. And so that was a huge thing in midlife to be like, oh, I have my own kind of energy. Oh, like, okay. Like just really coming into understanding all of those nuanced aspects of myself that like, I couldn't slog through anymore with pure, raw desire. Like like I just really needed to take care of myself. And that meant changing my business model. So the first thing was the hormones. And then once I got those under control, I had like a much clearer brain. And then I could focus on like, which business model even fits me? What do I want to do?
Yeah, that's such a great point. I loved how you said nuanced aspects of yourself. I had that epiphany too, because you're like, well, I knew how to function in a publishing department at a hospital, like at a health institution. I knew how to show up. I knew how to behave in a meeting. I knew what jokes were okay, what jokes weren't okay. And what that created for me here was stiffness. Like my writing was a little stiff and
Yeah.
I wasn't embracing my silly self.
Your Suzy self.
Yeah, because thank you, because it didn't seem professional. And I'm doing the air quotes thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I started, once I started the podcast, it was 3 or 4 years in to the online, being an online coach type of thing. And I remember seeing iTunes review after iTunes review complimenting the way I laugh, the way my silly storytelling helps break down these hard concepts into uh, things that were real and accessible
And relatable.
and yeah, and relatable, exactly. And I just remember just sitting here going, wow, I can be myself. I'm gonna let my freak flag fly. I'm gonna be laughing. I'm gonna be telling my stupid jokes and puns on occasion when appropriate. And and it was such a relief. But wow, it was a shock to me because I didn't think that was professional behavior.
And that is what a lot of my clients come to me with. So my clients are people like you who have been extremely successful. They are accomplished. They have a lot of letters behind their name, and they're morphing into something else. And they have these beliefs, these deep seated beliefs about like, oh, I can't really bring real Suzy here, or if I bring real Suzy, I have to let the whole world in. But like your personal brand persona is different than your Suzy persona, right? We get to parse all of that out for ourselves, but it's a really hard journey for people. It's there's like a bridge that they have to walk over. I'm curious for you, what was like the thing that you were like, I can't be this stiff hospital publisher Suzy anymore in this role? What was like the moment for you that you just either let it down or something hit you?
I think it was the iTunes review. It was coming from external. Once I saw that enough external people receiving the podcast information, which was, very professionally done, it was just my voice relaxed a little bit.
Yeah.
And if I thought something was funny or if I wanted to share a story, and then that led to sharing stories that, that that are embarrassing because weird midlife stuff happens.
I know.
Women.
Chin hairs happen.
Chin hairs. Oh my God. That was one of the earliest episodes I did. That was episode 6. Or maybe it was 7. There was the bad underwear and the chin hairs came close.
Has anybody found good underwear yet? Because I don't have good underwear yet.
Oh my gosh, Jen. I did a whole challenge on that. I've done a podcast episode.
I'm going to have to go find.
I mean, the thing is really to think about what is wrong. What is wrong? Like, what are you looking for? And then the other one is related to self-care is why do we allow ourselves to have pathetic panties for as long as we do? Like, why don't we solve that problem with as much gusto as other problems that we that we take care of business with? It's no problem at all. Anyway, there's all kinds of issues, but it definitely moved that one up on the self-care list for yourself. Because think about how often we see them and it makes us uncomfortable.
Oh my God. Every day it's like, can I wrestle with these? I don't know if I can. I know.
One of the problems I think is that we want to buy things online, but when you buy online, it's a problem because you can't try them on and then they don't fit. And then you've got them stuffing your drawers because you feel too guilty about throwing something out. Like I think that whole online thing is a problem with the underwear.
Especially for midlife women. Yes.
Yeah. And I've been corrected. Panties. So
they're still underpants to me.
Okay, because when I grew up, it was underwear.
Yes, and I grew up on Long Island, New York, so it's underpants for us.
Oh, underpants, yes, with a 7-pack with days of the week. Thank you very much.
That's so funny.
Anyway, yeah, so I think that's what it was. So then I started to share some stories that I wouldn't have told it at my old job. And sometimes when I'm telling them, I'm thinking, I bet there's a few men listening to this podcast. Like I feel safer in podcast land because it's specifically for women.
Yeah.
But still, I'm wondering, maybe there's some men listening to this episode and I'm talking about, peeing my pants.
Well, then you can say to them, you're welcome, because now you know what your wife or partner or your sister or your mother is dealing with. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. The COVID was so terrible when you go on walks and all the bathrooms were closed. And that's what happened. It was a very bad situation one October during COVID. Anyway.
I love this. See, stories are such a way to help us find our voice, but we're so protected. And, even it really is like a generational thing because we're Gen Xers and we have grown up being told, like, again, you're supposed to have one job for the rest of your life. What, like, I'm disappointing my parents all the time by, my stepmother likes to say, oh, Jenny likes to change her job every 4 years. I'm like, I really don't like to, but my brain gets bored. And I'm just really lucky that I have the opportunity to, right? So I feel like as Gen Xers, we're always kind of trying to break the mold of how we grew up. And nobody was talking about this stuff when
No.
we were growing up. My mother was not a happy woman. And I can't imagine how lonely it was for her in the 70s and 80s because women were not having the underpants and chin hair and peeing your pants conversations that we get to have right now. And it's really scary to break those molds and those mores and those expectations, but finding your voice I always say, like, when you find your brand voice, it doesn't mean like you have to, lead all over the internet and, like, expose every wound that you have and tell every story and tell stories that aren't yours. Like, you really do get to protect yourself, but you also get to decide what you can sound like that feels more like yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Technically, I'm on the cusp between baby boomer and Gen X. I am 61, and it's so interesting because I can see that my experience is a little different than yours, for example, when it comes to technology or when we started using a computer at university or whatever. But I really noticed that I had a thought when I was stuck for 5 years at my job, and I realized that I really believed that it was a good thing to stay at a job a really long time.
Your parents were doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a real belief. So that was part of, that's just a little part of it. But the way I was thinking about making a change, there was so much fear. But yeah, we do have all these thoughts and beliefs, about how we show up professionally. And there's lots to think about. There are lots of nuanced aspects of yourself.
Yes. Yes.
So good. Okay. So the other thing I like to talk about on the podcast is, how do you think, or how have you noticed that being an older and wiser woman who's an entrepreneur, how does age and stage affect where you're at now? Have you noticed anything about aging or older women with your clients or with yourself or with opportunities, anything like that?
A couple of things come to mind. This was true more for me when I was running a membership. It was a content creator. It was called the Content Creation Studio or Content Creator Studio. And it was a monthly, like, every month I was really helping people, like, I was getting my hands in their content. And a lot of the women in there, midlife women, very resistant to putting themselves out there, telling their stories, and being seen on camera was a very big deal for them. They were always saying, like, oh, I'll wait until I lose 20 pounds and before I redo my brand photos for my website. I don't want to put this out there. I don't want people to see my face. And actually, I hid behind graphics like that were on brand, but they just didn't show my face for the first probably 3 or 4 years of my business. And I just didn't realize, this is like 2016 to 18, 19. And I just didn't realize how important it is for people to see your face. And it's really hard when not only was I comparing my business model to other people, I'm comparing, like, what do I look like compared to other people? I gained 40 pounds over COVID. Just all of these, like, weight things, the look things, there's just all of these comparisons that you have. So that has been a big struggle. It was a big struggle for me early. But again, like, I love my therapist and I love healing, and all of that stuff has unraveled some of this where I have a lot, like, a lot less F's to give about it, but also breaking up with, I don't really use social media anymore for my business. My business model does not require me to churn and burn on social media. I designed my business to be more relationship focused than traffic focused, right? So, like, my marketing is about talking with people and serving people. And so it's like, I don't have to be on social media anymore. So that was very helpful. And I am really proud of being in my 50s. And I feel that I bring something, I bring like a lot of wisdom. And I wonder if you've ever heard of these two theories that I just found about in the last few months. So the first theory is it has to do with adult brain development, and that in our first 40 years we are doing something called fluid intelligence. where we're just operating on pure raw brain power. It's like, remember how when you were young, you could just churn and churn and churn and churn. And then when you turn 40, you're like, what is happening? And we move into a brain development phase called crystallized intelligence. And it kind of hit me, and I didn't have a word for it. And so like I found these two theories. Crystallized intelligence is where you take all of your past experiences and all of your everything that you've done, and it moves into something called crystallized intelligence, where at 40, your fluid intelligence decreases, but your crystallized intelligence keeps going up. And now it's like, how you're in your 60s, you see everything so broadly, and you really can like put things together, and you have a wisdom, and you're like, oh, I see how A, B, C, and Z all work together. And you don't have that like breadth when you're young.
Right.
And when I understood that, I felt really good about how my brain works now. Like maybe I don't have instant recall anymore for a word, and maybe I don't have as much energy, and maybe I can't work on pure raw brain power like my 17-year-old can, but I know shit, and I can put things together, and I can pull them together and create something new. Like I am wise, and my crystallized intelligence, like I just keep leaning into that and knowing like no matter what room I'm in, I might not be the fastest or the cleverest. I am certainly not the most hip. I never know what's going on, in the world of entertainment, but I can pull things together, and I have wisdom, and I just have been really trying to lean into that.
Oh, I love that. I've seen some of that being talked about in terms of wisdom, but I hadn't heard those two terms before.
They were very helpful for me. I'm trying to share them with as many people as possible because it changed my life when I had a phrase for what is going on. Like, why can I synthesize things in a way that I never could when I was in my 20s or 30s or 40s even?
I would have just called it wisdom, but yeah, I love this. It really helps. And thank you for being so honest about compare and despair, because that is so painful, and it's so common as an entrepreneur. It's so easy because so many of us think I should be farther than I am.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we look at other people and have thoughts that things are easier for them, or that they were lucky, or like who knows what. But we're not necessarily comparing apples to apples. We don't know what their goals are. We don't know what their priorities are, but
what
we just
wounds they have, what garbage they're carrying around. You don't know any of that. It's so easy to compare, and it's so easy to say, I want what they have. And then and this has been my experience. And then I've gotten it. And then it's like, oh, I don't want this. This was the wrong thing to want. I spent all that energy wanting this, and I don't.
That's a great epiphany. I realized that too. I forget, it was before the pandemic. Maybe it was during. I can't remember time anymore at all.
I know.
But there was an observation that the membership model was very, very popular. And I dove into that. And then I realized, wow, to scale this the way you think you want to requires a lot of money and moving parts and people that you have to hire, and there's so many things. And then I thought to myself, do I really want a business model like that? Like with all of those people and contractors, and I decided I didn't. And sometimes you don't know what you want until you're poked. And that is a great time to really make a comparison. It helps you figure out what you want. That's different than compare and despair, but it's important to understand what you're thinking more and more and more so that we can be intentional.
Yeah, talk about critical thinking. Like we're just always critical thinking, right? Thinking about your thinking. That's all you're doing.
Yeah. And for you, I mean, you've really come full circle with English and words and everything, which is a beautiful thing. And I always think we're always on the right path. We just don't see it. And certainly I think that's what's happened with you. So what would you like next in your business?
Well, I always say I want everything to be more effortless and easy. And about 3 weeks ago, my therapist said, she's like, well, you've been asking for things to be more effortless and easy, and here they are, and you don't know how to handle it. You don't know how to receive the ease. And I was like, that is true. And so what I would like everything next to look like would be to be able to receive the ease and know what to do with it. If I'm not overworking and I'm not on my way to burnout and things are easy, then what am I doing? And that is the journey that I'm on right now, which is, what else is there besides work? My son is about to go to school next year, and what else is there for me?
That's a beautiful question to ask. Oh my goodness. You're going to have fun with that one. What would you say is the most surprising thing about being a woman over 50 and an entrepreneur?
Oh, that there's still a lot of time left, that there's still a lot of opportunities that, when sure that people have talked about this before, but like when you look at the Golden Girls from 1985, they were our age and they were like living in a retirement home and they were like looking like they were in their 80s. And I think that has changed. That is obviously not how it is anymore. But we have to embody that for ourselves and like live like we still have a lot of time.
Exactly. So good. So, what would you say the top three things, if you wanted to make sure that somebody listening right now really heard you say three things, what would those three things be?
I would say pay attention to what you're thinking and feeling. Like, what are you noticing in your brain and your body? Because and I'm not like a healer, but it is a very important piece of information to just notice what you're thinking all the time. That would be number one. Number two, it really can be different. It really doesn't have to be the way that it has been forever. So if you're suffering or struggling or challenged by something right now, it does not have to be like that 3, 5, 10 years from now. And the third thing, well, I'm still working on this one, but being able to answer it, like spending some time with the question, like, what do you want? Because we've been programmed to always be thinking about what everybody else wants. And I think that our generation specifically is not very good at answering the question, what do I want?
Correct. That is correct.
It feels selfish. It feels selfish.
Yeah, it feels selfish and it can feel indulgent,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we do have to get better at it. Putting ourselves first is very uncomfortable for women our age, or it can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I compare myself a lot to like my grandmother, who was a janitor in a nursing home. And, like I have literally had to go through a lot of therapy and healing to learn that like she would not want that life for me. I don't have to recreate that in honor of her. And I look around at my own life and I see a lot of women entrepreneurs like absolutely killing themselves in order to reach some goal that they've like said is important to them, some external goal. And I'm like, I don't have to overwork myself in honor of them either. Like it is not helping anybody for me to stay in extreme stress and burnout and overwhelm. Like it really can be easier. I just have to figure out how to be okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Jen, so much good stuff here. How can people best get in touch with you?
Well, I mostly broke up with social media, but I did get back on Instagram and I am there as Hey Jen Liddy. So I'm like kind of mostly I'm on Instagram, but if you would like to connect with me on Instagram, please find me at Hey Jen Liddy. You can go to my website. Everything's at my website, jenliddy.com. And I actually created a marketing toolkit for women who want to be able to use their voice and they don't want it to be like the spotlight on them. So I created this thing called the Backstage Brilliance Marketing Toolkit, which gives you 21 prompts that are not focused on you. They're focused on your audience. And I teach them exactly how to use it. It's like a little mini course and they can have that for $0 with the code Suzy, your name, SUZY. And they do that at jenliddy.com/backstage. And that is a very like easy way to, get some leverage with your brilliance. And you would get on my email list. And then that's mostly where I talk to people. And I have a podcast called Content Creation Made Easy, where you can find me I only do it 2 times a month because I found it was hard for people to keep up with it weekly. So those are the places to find me. Content Creation Made Easy.
What a great idea. Perhaps I'll consider that.
Yes. I highly recommend it.
Amazing, Jen. Thank you so much for taking the time from your day and sharing all of this amazing stuff. I really appreciate how authentic you've been and also just how honestly you were talking about compare and despair. That really meant a lot to me. It's come up in my life and it certainly comes up in a lot of women's lives in my community. I totally love what you're doing. You're amazing. So thank you so much for coming on the show. All right. That is it for now. If you're listening and loving what you hear, please like and subscribe. Reviews are great too and much appreciated. And if you're a woman in the middle who's 50 or over and an entrepreneur and would also like to come on the show, please go to www.midlifeinterviews.com and fill out an application. We'd love to have you on to share your story. Thanks so much for listening. It's never too late for you to put yourself on your agenda. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you again soon. Now, real quick before we say goodbye, if you are connecting with this show, I'd love to invite you to a happiness breakthrough coaching session. It's my laser-focused coaching call that will help you get clear about what's getting in your way as a woman in the middle entrepreneur and confident about your next steps to more happiness in your next chapter. Head over to www.nextchapterbreakthrough.com. Talk to you soon.